Regular meeting of Clear Lake City Council of Monday, August 3rd, 2020 shall come to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Bennett, that we approve the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. To the consent agenda. You have a copy of the minutes of July 20th, 2020. We need approval of the bills and claims, of which you also have a copy, and we have the following licenses and permits: excavator license, Mountain Movers Dirt Works of Rowan, Patrick O'Neill, Clear Lake, that's new. Tree trimmers license, Westaby Tree Service, Alexander, that's a renewal. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Mark, that we approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Same. Motion carries. Unfinished business, of which we have none. We'll go right to new business. 5A, City Beach Enhancement Project, Phase 1. Review, Mr. Flory.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. In your packet, you have the green sheets pertaining to this item. The first green sheet in your packet is a resolution accepting the work. This is for the City Beach Enhancement Project, Phase 1. If you recall, this was a contract that was awarded to Dean Snyder Construction here in Clear Lake. That was awarded by the council back in September of 2019. The project's, of course, been done for quite some time, but the engineer has just now certified the project for completion, so that was included in your packets. The back page of the resolution indicating that all the work was completed in compliance with the project's previously approved plan specifications, form of contract, so recommending acceptance of that work. And you also have the final pay estimate for the project, which is pay estimate number 3. That's included there in your packet. That is in the amount of $12,286.09. And again, that's a final pay estimate, so the city holds the retainage. That's simply the retainage amount. We, by law, have to hold that for a period of not less than 31 days before we can release that back to the contractor. So just in the way of some review on the project, of course, the project involved the construction of water main improvements in addition to the demolition of the existing City Beach restroom facility, as well as the demolition of the DNR aerator building that was there. So that was a substantial portion of the project. It also involved construction of new raw water main and finished water main work there as well. And also the construction of a temporary shed that was to house the aerator pumps and associated equipment over the course of the winter, and then reinstallation of that equipment, which of course was done successfully, had a completion date by Thanksgiving of last year, and so that completion date was met. The project was originally awarded in the amount of $222,000. It also had a unit price of $130 per cubic yard for the exportation of contaminated soil, and then there was some water issues that were involved there. So the final contract amount was $245,721.70. So that was a little bit less than what we had anticipated for the project. We had anticipated a base bid of $230,000 and then roughly about $30,000 for associated removals of contaminated soil and then dewatering along with that. So again, just a little bit under what we had estimated for the project. So final number was $245,721.70, and again, that's just for the Phase 1 portion of the project. Phase 2 was done under the auspices of a different contractor, and that contract, of course, was Peterson Construction. So we'll have, a closeout on that portion of the project coming up at a later point. But again, so you have, for your consideration this evening, the resolution accepting the work, and then also to authorize the final pay estimate, which is again pay estimate number 3 in the amount of $12,286.09, which represents the retainage for the project. Anyone has any questions?
Council, any questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott. Therefore, entertain a motion to approve pay estimate number 3 with regard to City Beach Enhancement Project Phase 1 in the amount of $12,286.09 to Dean Snyder Construction, Clear Lake, Iowa. Motion, please.
So offered.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Gary, that we approve the pay estimate number 3. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Now I'll entertain a motion to approve Resolution 2047 is the resolution accepting the work of Dean Snyder Construction Company of Clear Lake with regard to the City Beach Enhancement Project, Phase 1. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Mark, that we approve Resolution 2047. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mark?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
And Gary?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Resolution 2047 is duly adopted. 5B, position descriptions, Public Works Director, Finance Officer, and Lieutenant. Review, Mr. Flory.
Thanks again, Mayor. The purple sheets in your packet start out with this item, the Public Works Director job description. If you recall, we entered into a agreement with Midwest Consulting here earlier this year to update our job descriptions. So bringing forward these kind of in a piecemeal approach. So we've gone over these again in light of the recent announcements of the retirements for the incumbents at each of these 3 positions. So we've updated them to reflect what we think are maybe current conditions in the market for these kinds of positions. So the first one in your packet is the Public Works Director's job description. And I'd be happy to answer any questions about that if you have them. The next sheets, the white sheets, are the finance officer's job description. Following that is the prospectus that I prepared for the position, and I would just talk about that for a minute. This is similar in the context of what I receive a lot from executive recruiters who are recruiting for positions in other communities, other organizations. So it follows very similar a format that a private consultant would utilize in sending this kind of information out to prospective candidates. So I'm really proud of how that has come out. I think it's a very good piece and tells a lot about our community, what we would consider to be an ideal candidate profile for the position, the essential functions of the job, and again, quite a bit about our community itself. So that is something that has been, Jennifer Larson, the clerk, and I have been working on distributing this, and I would say that we have really left no stone unturned on this job advertisement. So it has been directly sent to numerous people in the field in the state of Iowa directly, so asking for their cooperation and support in passing the job opportunity on to friends or colleagues that they may think have an interest in this position. So I would say that we've directly emailed it to probably in the neighborhood of 50 to 60 individuals in the field in Iowa. It's also currently advertised on the Iowa League of Cities website, the South Dakota League of Cities, Missouri League of Cities, Wisconsin League of Cities, Minnesota League of Cities. So very extensive there. We've also placed it in the Des Moines Register online, as well as the Minneapolis Star online. Of course, on our website, social media. Am I leaving any out? The Government Finance Officer, so that's a nationwide association of professionals in this field, so we've advertised it through the Government Finance Officers Association, as well as my professional association, the International City Managers Association, is in addition to the state associations for clerks and finance officers and city managers as well. So I think, again, it's just literally a global attempt to try to get as many people interested in the position as possible. So again, if you've gone through the job description, it's a incredibly responsible, high-level position. So as I said last time, I won't kid you, it will not be an easy job to fill, and people with those kind of credentials are hard to come by. So that will be a challenge for us to fill that. But again, it won't be a result of a lack of effort for trying, because we've certainly advertised it as many places we possibly can. Lastly, the police lieutenant job description, that Pete and Mike updated that one again after Midwest Consulting gave us a good update on that, and so they're starting the process now for internal advancement opportunities with that position, so there'll be more on that coming later. So I don't know if anyone has any questions specifically about any of those job descriptions, but we would like to have those approved this evening by the council.
Council, questions? I don't know, I'd like to say, Scott, though, that this summary that you made of the community, and which is handed out or given out to those who are interested in those positions, is very well done.
Thank you.
It's short, it's descriptive, it's concise, and it's not a bunch of pages that you have to, it's very good.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
hope I don't have to do it ever again, but for either of these positions. So as we talked before, when we developed the early retirement incentive program, we had the incumbents in each of these three positions. All have over 30 years of service with the city, so and those positions, we're losing about 92 years worth of experience, so we're putting a lot of effort into these, and hopefully that's, you hire a public works director and a finance officer, hopefully just one time in your career. It's like building a water tower. Yes.
Thank you. Before I entertain a motion to approve positions descriptions, City Council? Motion?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Dana, seconded by Bennett, that we approve the position descriptions that we just heard. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. To 5C, ordinance amending water services fees. Intro, Mr. Flory.
Thanks again, Mayor. The pink sheet in your packet is the ordinance on this one. The water superintendent's been working on this one for a little while. I don't have a whole lot in terms of review, so I think he's on the phone here this evening. But basically, a number of these fees have not been increased for quite some time, in some cases as long as 17 years. So, but we're talking about things like basically meter installation fees, connection charges, and service charges and those kinds of things. So the superintendent did prepare, I thought, a pretty nice cover memo for giving a description for each of the reasons here for some of these. And in most cases, I would describe these increases as simply meeting costs. So we've been not meeting the costs for meters for quite a while. So this just tries to get us a little bit more cost recovery on some of those things. So I don't have anything further on background on that, and Adam is on the phone, and if he wants to,
Actually, right here.
There he is. I thought he was going to be on the phone, but if he wants to give some more background.
Thanks, Scott.
Any questions? It's basically, a lot of it's one-time fees, and it's just been 17 years. We just want to be able to cover our costs at the water department. Nothing trying to keep up with 3%.
Council, any questions for Adam and or Scott? That completed, okay? Hey, thanks, Adam, appreciate your being here. I would entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 854, an ordinance amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Clear Lake, 2003, by amending the water service fees. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
By Gary, seconded by Mark, that we approve ordinance number 854. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Bennett?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
And Mark?
Yes.
Motion carries 5-0. Ordinance number 854 is duly adopted. Main Avenue Seawall Dock Ordinance Proposal. Intro, Mr. Flory.
Mayor, the gray sheets in your packet at the end address this item. There's also a pink sheet that's the letter from the Park and Rec Director giving a synopsis of the Parks and Rec Board meeting from July 22nd. If you recall, in the way of background, at your meeting on July 20th, the council had reviewed a draft proposal I put together for an ordinance regarding the Main Avenue seawall dock and establishing rules and regulations pertaining to utilization of that dock and providing for penalties for violations of that. So that was at the July 20th meeting. That was then referred back to the Park and Rec Board, Advisory Board, for their review and comment, which I've mentioned is included there in your packet tonight. That was held on July 22nd, so we're back here this evening for the first reading on the proposed ordinance that's in your packet here this evening. So we've reviewed quite a bit of it there at the last meeting. I just want to maybe touch on a couple of other things. Of course, this pertains only to the Main Avenue dock itself, not to any of the other docks that are in the community or outside of the community. If we go to section 3, there was a point talking to a couple of you that I thought probably needed a little more clarification, so I would recommend some additional language to be inserted there under section 3A, where it says the city dock may be used incidentally and in conjunction with commercial purposes, but such use shall be limited to. I would propose to insert the language of onboarding and offboarding of passengers in front of dropping off and picking up. So again, onboarding and offboarding of passengers as part of the incidental commercial use. Then down a little bit further under section 3D, commercial vessel or watercraft that is under a rental agreement, to insert some additional language there and for which the renter has taken control and custody of the watercraft may utilize the dock in accordance with the time limits prescribed in the ordinance. So again, just inserting the language and for which the renter has taken control and custody of the watercraft. Then under section, and some of these were consistent, and I'll get to that in a minute here with the Park Board's recommendations. So letter E under 3, any use of the city dock by a recognized boating or yachting organization, and also to insert the language or in conjunction with any organized community events. Exempt from the time limits established by the ordinance. Section 4 is another one that the Park Board wanted some additional clarification, so that's some additional different language than what you looked at the first time on July 20th. So 4B states, no person shall sell, vend, or peddle liquids, edibles, goods, wares, or merchandise on any portion of the city dock without specific authorization from the city. So Mr. Miller wasn't able to be here tonight, so I'll just go through the pink sheet here. Essentially, the Park Board, Advisory Board made these suggestions for the council's consideration that section 2A, they would recommend allowing 45 minutes for staging and or removal of commercial watercraft. Section 2B, the board recommended allowing no more than 2 commercial vessels at any one time for the purposes of staging and removal. There was, again, also the language about the board feels that once in the possession of renters, any rented craft should then fall under the same time limit. So that's that change I mentioned earlier to you. And then, again, under Section 2D, the clarification on organized events. So, again, they kind of talked about things like the antique boat show, fishing tournaments, and regattas and other kinds of organized events, and I mentioned that one earlier as well. And then last but not least, Section 3B, where they wanted some clarification on some language regarding the commercial activity as it pertains to the selling of products or goods, and that's that new language that I shared with you as well. So I don't have anything further on that ordinance proposal unless anybody has any questions.
Council, any questions to that? On gray sheets, got section 3.
Yep.
Letter D.
Yep.
It says prescribed in section 1A.
It should be 2A. Yep, that was a
Okay.
typo.
Okay.
Yep, a good catch.
Any other comments, questions? And you said Randy is not?
Not able to attend.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you, Scott. All right, audience, I want to give you, for the next couple of steps here, if in fact you are interested, I'm going to open this up here shortly, opportunity for public comment. When you do come to the podium, I will ask you to state your name first and last and give your address so that our clerk can properly enter this into the minutes. While someone is speaking, I expect you to give them your utmost attention and respect. Following that, when everyone has had their opportunity to speak or wants to speak, then we will close the public comment section by motion, and then the council here will discuss that among themselves, asking staff members questions if they want, but there will be no interaction between those in the audience and the council. So those in the audience, you will have your opportunity to speak, and then those of us up here at the council will then also have their opportunity among themselves as well. And then we will go into action on ordinance number 855, following right along there on the agenda. All right, so now I will open the opportunity for public comment with regard to Main Avenue Seawall Dock Ordinance Proposal. Any of you in the audience that wish to speak, please approach the podium, and like I said, give your name first and last, and give your address so the clerk can properly enter the minutes. Sure, welcome. Welcome.
Gentlemen, my name is Walt Muskovich. I reside at 304 Winds Drive. Prior to this past Friday, a number of Clear Lakers were having a cup of coffee and discussing mostly nothing that is really important. However, one of the things that did come up was the situation at the dock at the seawall. Number one, I'll give a little bit of a discussion about what some of us thought. And actually, there was no intention of me being up here tonight because I didn't think it was going to be necessary. But what we talked about is that there are other businesses that are really in competition to the people that are using the dock today. And those people have spent many, many multiples of hundreds of thousands of dollars or even seven figures to be in business. The taxpayer is subsidizing an ongoing business affair, which I think is a little bit unfair to those that went out and bought property, got rights, and so forth, et cetera. Subsequently, I, as a taxpayer, have some issues with supporting any business, an ongoing business, that gives one business a little bit of a heads up over another one. And this is what is happening. Other issues that came about was, on Friday, my wife and I, after we were done shopping, we went down Main, and we like to see what's happening at the splash pad and so forth, et cetera, as we've been in this community for over 60 years. Subsequently, there was a lot of congestion, lack of parking spots, and so forth, et cetera. We had to stop for the chief because he was putting out cones for whatever, and my wife was kind enough to stop to make sure that she didn't hit anybody. But anyway, still at that juncture, after going home, I had no intention of being up here, but my wife went up there to mail something today and went down Main again. And she noticed that there was 3 pontoons out at the dock, and that one of them had like someplace between 5 and 7 people boarding with coolers and so forth, et cetera. Now, when those people leave, they're going to leave their vehicles there. They're going to be using parking spots. And that is not a big benefit to the city of Clear Lake. So gentlemen, from a business standpoint, I think we're maybe a little bit unfair to some businesses. Number two, as a taxpayer, I don't like to subsidize private businesses. And thirdly, I think that some of the ongoing congestion and so forth, et cetera, could be eliminated. So personally, I think that the whole thing should be eliminated. There should be no ongoing businesses carrying on business off of those docks, or that dock. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a, go ahead, we have a history here of a maximum of 5 minutes. So just FYI. Welcome.
Hi, Mayor and Council. Good to see you guys. Jim Banky, 1511 North 23rd Street. I too am opposed to any commercial activity on this dock. Growing up here in this community, this dock was used by myself and several of my classmates and stuff like that, where we would go swim, we would fish. It was a dock that we could have access to without any public interference. I also feel that if we were to approve this, I'm afraid of an ongoing suggestion of where does it end? How do we know we won't be up here next year with somebody else saying, well, somebody has 4 or 5 or 2 or 1 spot, we want more we want spots. I'm afraid it could possibly capitulate into a can of worms. Number 3, I will agree with Walt on everything he said, but this point too, parking, I'm afraid for parking down there. Number 4, I'm not against business people in Clear Lake, good grief. I want businesses to succeed, I want them to prosper, I want us to have more businesses. But I think in this instance here, where so many other people that have tried to do some boating activities and stuff like that, think about the people that are on a waiting list to get one of the public docks down by the Lady of the Lake. Do you realize that list has over 300 people on it? Now, how fair is it to those people that some new business can just have a spot on city dock at no expense, I may add? Who's going to pick up the garbage? What about the liability of it? What if somebody gets hurt boarding or unboarding a boat? Those are some of my concerns. I think city dock should be left just as it always has been, at least through my life. City dock. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, Bob.
Bob Wolfram, I have a little small business here in Clear Lake and from Ventura. I've lived around this lake my whole life, and I've been a student of what's gone on here for many, many years. Mr. Banky and gentleman previous to him nails it. I mean, I can't even add to that except the heavy emphasis on the congestion downtown. And I'm for small business, and if the party concerned here wants to go to the DNR and try to figure something out maybe by the Ritz or something like that, I'll step right with him. But city dock, it's got to stay the way it is. And I haven't read the whole ordinance, but what I've heard so far that Mr. Flory has put together a really, really strong ordinance there that I feel is fair. And I would really like to think that you guys would just sort of leave things the way they are, because who's to say that wants to come over and start renting their canoes or their boats and stuff over there. And I think we're just opening up, like they said, a can of worms that we're never going to see the end of here in Clear Lake. You know, the dock's only so big, the parking area is so big, you know. And just like Mr. Banky said, the people on the waiting list for dock, put their hoists, it's not fair to them either. So that being said, I guess that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? None appearing. I'll entertain a motion to close the opportunity for public comment on the Main Avenue seawall dock ordinance proposal. Motion, please.
So moved. Second.
By Bennett, seconded by Dana, that we close the public comments on the Main Avenue seawall dock ordinance. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same.
Mr. Mayor, I have a motion to make.
Pardon?
I have a motion to make next.
We're here for discussion at this point.
Well, after the discussion.
Councilman, any discussion? I have comments to make here. I'll kick it off here. And this is in contradiction to the proposed ordinance this evening. But I have listed an opportunity that we might take as an exception to this as well. First of all, I want to thank the Chamber of Commerce, who I believe we got 2 individual letters from them, all of the council people. Appreciate that. Here are my comments. This is a COVID summer. Oh, don't we know that? No events. Therefore, our restored lake, keep in mind, folks, we all spent, you've heard me bark about this before, over $23 million over the last 15 to 20 years in restoring that lake with the hopes of making it a better lake, and I think we're getting there, as well as to attract people to this community. And believe it or not, this summer, if we could personify our lake, she has beckoned many, many visitors. Most likely, there will never be a summer like this. No carnival, no fishing tourneys, no fireworks, no car show, et cetera, et cetera. And next summer, hopefully no COVID. Now for some point of references. We do have some public-private business partnerships, somewhat in that area. We have the Lady of the Lake. Some of you remembered when she came up here. I believe it was Mr. Geist who brought her up here from Omaha a number of years ago. And at that time, the council had decisions to make with regard to where she shall be moored, at least during the times when there is no ice on the lake. And they chose to have her be in the position of which we know her right this evening. Along with that came later $500 a year would be paid by the owner of the Lady of the Lake to the city. We had another one years ago down by Touristville, another public-private business in which the dock, call it Brant's Dock, was allowed to go in there off of the public approach. And we gave him permission to have that there for use of tending to his hoist services. At one time, back in the 90s, there were some teenagers who came to the city council. I believe they called themselves Lake Sports Incorporated, and this was on North Lakeview in the 90s, as I said. And they rented out there a couple of Sea-Doos, a couple of kayaks, a couple of paddle boats, and a few other things. Didn't last very long, but they were given permission to do that. Good entrepreneur experience. And we've had others come who have been denied that opportunity for a variety of reasons along that Lakeview area. All right, here's an observation of mine recently. It was the 4th of July. I'm in my home in three little granddaughters were running around, lots of noise. I turned on the Clear Lake television and put it, I have Clear Lake Vision, put it on channel 2. Couldn't hear it, but I could see it. This was 7:30 in the morning. I looked out there and I could see what I assumed were some movement solution rental boats. There were a total of 7 that had arrived at the dock, and they were parked on the outside of the dock. By that I mean the big lakeside part of the dock. And by 9, and keep in mind that each of those boats probably, there were 7 of them, probably would have, what, 3 to 5 to 7 to who knows how many people, a few people. And by 9 a.m., the boats had started, some had already left, started to leave with those people who rented them prior to that time back at the Movement Solution office area, I call it, out on the corner of Highway 18 and North 8th. In addition, at that time, other people were coming in to that new dock area, as I call it, in their private boats. They arrived and they used the available slips on the other side of our dock, on, I call it the shore side. There was no boat congestion. Now this has been for Movement Solutions, I'll call it MS. This has been an MS practice since May. Then, and at the present time, there is nothing illegal with using this location. There's no limit on the number of rental boats to be picked up by the people renting them or the renters. There's no limit on the length of time for the renters to get their boats out. And there has been no congestion with private boat owners in the area. So where is the problem here? Presently, the problem. Is Movement Solutions misusing our new public dock to their advantage? And that's not right. Is this our perception? And therefore it must be stopped? Or is it simply we don't like what we see? The seawall dock. So tonight we are going to pass an ordinance and establish, let's say we're going to act on an ordinance, and establish rules and regs for its proper use and prescribe penalties for violations thereof. That is, setting reasonable time limitations on moorage at the dock and to preserve the recreational purpose of the dock for the general public. Also, limiting the number of rental boats moored at any one time, with only one allowed, and for a time lapse of only 30 minutes. For those renting out several boats, obviously, this is a handicap. Penalties will be enforced by a law enforcement officer for violations. The who, what, where, why, when, and how of that enforcement will certainly be a challenge. My recommendation. Let's do this in the manner that we have done in many other private-public partnerships. There, we've established agreements that would include input from those who are directly affected. In this case, might include, could include PR board members, chamber members, city government officials, marine rental owners, and others. This would be a lot more palatable than having an ordinance enacted halfway through the summer to correct a perceived violation of proper use of our new city dock. Thanks for listening. Other council members?
I'd like to make a motion.
Actually, I'd like to speak if I could
Certainly.
for that, if this is the correct time for.
Correct.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for your comments. I appreciate those. Also want to thank everyone for coming out of their busy evening to listen to our arguments, so thank you for that. I'd like to go ahead and read my statement as well. As we consider this ordinance, I think it is important to understand that we all support promoting tourism here in Clear Lake and the businesses that depend on it. It is a crucial part of our economy, and we have invested a lot of money in our beachfront area and the lake itself to sustain that. Our upgrading of the splash pad and our downtown dock by the seawall are great examples of that, and our intent was for both to have broad public use. The issue before us now and the need for this ordinance is that the public seawall dock is being used in a manner that it was never intended to be used. We never intended for one private business to use it as a private marina, and that is how it is currently being used. Now, that current situation is not tenable because of the negative spillover effects for members of the public and the city. First, it causes more potential damage and maintenance issues for us because of the heavy commercial usage of the dock. And secondly, it causes some congestion on the boat ramp and perhaps most importantly, the parking downtown along the seawall. So by allowing one commercial user to dominate the dock, we are preventing easier access to our new splash pad and the use of the seawall area by members of the public due to the long-term parking issue created by this commercial user for its customers. Also, the Lakeview Room, it's important to remember, that's been closed this summer, and hopefully that will be available to the public again next year, and the parking needs for this important public asset need to be considered. I see the ultimate solution for a business such as this is to own or rent a private dock upon which they can conduct business. And until that can be acquired, there are multiple locations around the lake which can be used on a rotational basis to prevent the congestion issues at the seawall and to adhere to our proposed ordinance. Now, though we cannot allow the dock to take on the appearance of a private marina, I do continue to believe that we need to allow for incidental commercial use of the dock by any of the businesses that rent watercraft here in Clear Lake. It is important for tourists and visitors to Clear Lake, and in these difficult economic times, we should facilitate the docking, shopping, and enjoyment of our downtown area for their customers within limits. Therefore, I would propose that we allow for the 2 boat slips for 45 minutes as discussed by our Park and Rec Board for the purposes of staging and removal. I would further recommend that any commercial user intending to use the public dock in this fashion be required to enter into a moorage agreement with the city that ensures that the city is held harmless from the use of the dock in conjunction with said business operations, and that the public is adequately protected from liability exposures, and a plan for customer parking that is mutually agreeable to both parties so that other users of the amenities downtown are not crowded out. My hope is that this will provide a workable solution that balances the interests of the city, the public, and potential commercial users of the dock. Thank you again. I appreciate it.
Your Honor, some comments? I probably should have spoke before Bennett because some of my comments are going to be kind of an echo. But when issues like this surface, I first try to remind myself of who elected me and whom I serve. Next, I try to view the big picture in the context of what decision makes the most sense based on Clear Lake history, and I've been around for most of my life, so I've got a little sense of that, and the greatest benefit of Clear Lake citizens. I see at least a little irony in this situation. Many ordinances we have passed in my 13 years on the council have been complaint-driven by our citizens. When we took bids on this Main Avenue seawall dock months ago, there was no mention of an ordinance to regulate the use of the dock. There was no comment on commercial use because the spirit of the proposal was for public use only. We were just attempting to upgrade the structure. As the weather warmed and people gathered, Mr. Flick continued to dominate the use of the dock by mooring 5 to 7 pontoon boats for several hours on many days. The complaints from citizens started coming in. To be fair, there were also complaints about children swimming and diving off the dock. This issue is seemingly solved by a sign. Conversations with Mr. Flick did little to change his approach to dock usage. It has remained the same even after meetings with city personnel and approaching the council and Parks and Rec Board. This seemed to create the need for some sort of a dock use ordinance. We have other boat rental businesses on our lake who own or rent slips on private commercial docks to conduct their transactions. As far as I know, this has almost always been the accepted method of boat rental, not depending on public docks considered city property. This dock was never meant to be a staging area for a commercial rental business. It has always been for the use and convenience of Clear Lake citizens and our visitors. From 4th Avenue North to 4th Avenue South City Beach Outlet, the city has created some very rare space for the public to enjoy the lake. Movement Solutions' commercial use of the seawall and dock area and subsequent congestion have limited the public's ability to utilize it. This has led to the need for a council solution of this problem, a dock ordinance to end commercial use of public property.
Any other comments, council?
Well, I'll go ahead and speak to the matter for just a few minutes. I don't have a piece of paper to read from, but just a couple of thoughts. Often when you sit in the crowd, I'm sure are wondering what's the other guy's thinking. And so I love the idea of working with all businesses in any fashion and form that makes sense for everybody. You always try to create a win-win situation. As a rental property owner in the city of Clear Lake, that's always the goal, is to create a win-win. You want to create a nice environment, a good rental, and a fair price so that people have a quality place to live. And so I'm entrepreneur-minded, I'm business-minded. We're all driven by profit at times, and we want to do things that help provide for our families and profit from that. So part of me says that we definitely should do something to create an opportunity for the folks that use that dock in the fashion that they do now in a way that would be a win-win for everybody. But then the flip side is we sit up here and have to make the harder decisions as to what does the city want? What do our constituents want? What would they feel is the best situation? And it's never easy. We get many calls and we get to spend many hours sometimes on the phone, and this is a prime example of the hardship sometimes that we have to go through. But in saying all that, and that's just my ideas as they flow through my little brain, this intended use of this dock was never for it to be 5 or 6 boats, I feel at times, that are moored down there, and only for a few hours at a time. But in a situation that we just had a few months ago as a city, we were under some stress because we not only made the decision to buy the dock and purchase it, put it out there, we had some issues with the dock. And so at one point here just about 6 weeks ago, there was some talk about taking the dock out to do some repairs to the dock because some hinges had broke and some other things that occurred to the dock. And so it put a lot of stress on our Parks and Rec and not sure what to do. And thankfully, the owner from pure genius backed his product. He came down, he worked on it, he did what he needed to do to make it better again. So I feel like this year for us as a city has been a learning curve with that dock. And so knowing that there's probably a little more than normal use on it, and knowing that there's the added commercial use, it does make me as an individual vote a little nervous to allow folks to continue to use it in that fashion. And so the thing I struggle with also is, what kind of can of worms do you open? If you allow one, do we allow others? And that's the hard part for us to make a decision as to how do we go forward. I would be happy to be able to sit down with this business and try to work on something. It would have been great for us if we had the opportunity in the past couple of years to do that, but I was not called in on any of those meetings, if there were some, to work on a solution that would be a win-win for everybody. So I think that in our ordinance that is written up, we're allowing for incidental commercial use. So if anybody that rents a boat wherever they drop it in the water, there's no reason you can't come moor that dock or moor that boat at the dock for an hour and go uptown and have a burger or pizza. We're not trying to be anti-business and run people off. That's not our intention. But we want to create an environment that is safe for all. I had a real concern as I've been boating this summer. I call it the high school reunion. There was things going on at that dock that made me feel unsafe, having children the same age as the children that were out there jumping and playing and diving. And we had to put a sign out there, which we did, which seems to have fixed that for the most part, like Mike said. And so I think that's been a good thing, because it could be a danger for those kids. Now, it's not to say they're going to go the next dock over and jump off of it or dive off of it, but we have to look at it in the bigger picture. We're a city entity with the liability. And if somebody gets hurt, how can we make it the safest place possible? So I don't want to talk in circles. I just want to remind you all that this isn't easy. You know, we are actually, as a city council, forced with a decision that we didn't even know was going to be a situation or a decision that had to be made just a few months ago. Things were brought to our attention, and then here we are and have to make those decisions. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Any other comments, council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Mr. Hughey?
Mine. The intent of the new dock.
Use your mic, please.
Oh, is it on? Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. The intent for the new public dock was for recreational use for all visitors and citizens of Clear Lake, Iowa. And then this new floating dock goes along with all the new lakeside enhancement projects that we have installed down there. This dock was not installed for exploitation and abuse for commercial business gain. Those are my feelings.
Thank you.
I'm not done yet,
okay.
Mr. Mayor, please.
Go ahead.
Commercial business on this dock has created a parking problem down there by taking up both sides of Lakeview Drive. That place, the seaside or seawall side has been utilized for years. People coming down there, drinking a cup of coffee, eating a sandwich, or just to look at the view. There is no view left. The business has taken the parking spaces up. I agree a lot with what has been said up here with everybody. Councilman Callahan, Councilman Brandt, myself. I'm not going to repeat a lot of this. I want to remind them that our forefathers used the correct verbiage in naming the street, Lakeview Drive. There is no view left with all this parking. The pandemic has done a number on everybody. There's some other concerns that go along in Bennett.
tipped on some of them, and so did Mike. Where, as far to my knowledge, this business didn't even ask for approval to use this dock. Not once, to anybody in the council or the administration that I'm aware of. What proof do we have of insurance that will hold the city harmless if there should be an accident or damage to the dock caused by their renters and watercraft? Simply put, my suggested solution to your problem is to find a parcel of land on the lake, purchase the land, and put in your own dock, and not rely exclusively on city dock and resources for your business. There is a right and there is a wrong. The public dock for commercial business has wrong with a capital W written on it. I'd like now to bring a motion to the council. Mr. Mayor, is that okay?
Is this in addition to what we have listed here?
Yes, it's an amendment to the upcoming ordinance.
Okay,
I would like to make a
correct,
motion.
just a minute. Are we in the right procedure here? You make an amendment before you, okay, carry on.
Motion, I make a motion to amend the upcoming ordinance to not allow any commercial business usage from the Main Street and Seawall Public Dock effective September 8th, 2020.
I'll second that.
And seconded to not allow any commercial enterprise to be on a public dock, is that what you said?
On this particular.
On
public
this, on the city dock, and the new city dock,
At Main Street and the seawall.
okay? Mrs. Larson, do you have that? Okay. It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion?
So under section 3 on the commercial dock, would you be including those changes that I mentioned in there? So the city dock may be used incidentally and in conjunction with commercial purposes, but such use shall be limited to onboarding and offboarding of passengers.
If we can put it in that amendment, I'm okay with
So
that.
that would be part of it. I just make sure I got it straight for the ordinance. And then D, that additional change I mentioned, the commercial vessel or watercraft that's under a rental agreement and within the care and custody control of the renter can utilize the dock.
Correct.
Yep. And then also that change on the community events under E, so that it can be utilized for a conjunction with organized community events.
Correct.
That's all I have.
And then effective September 8th, is that correct? Is that what I heard?
September 8th, 2020.
September.
Excuse me, Mayor, may I pose a question to Councilman Hugie regarding his motion?
Sure.
Are you okay? Okay.
So
Carry
far.
on. Carry on.
Okay. Just a question on that, and given Scott's elaboration of what would be included in your motion, is there any time limit on a potential commercial user who brings a boat down, wants to load up and leave? Is there any time limit component to that?
What do you mean by time?
Well, because they would have to, I assume, put it in the water, perhaps moor it to the dock to load passengers on and off.
No, they can do that. Just like
Okay.
a fisherman, you come in, unload your boat, put your people on there, and leave.
Okay, so just so we're clear, there's no time limit on that, though, per your
Well,
motion?
We're not gonna, assume we're not gonna tie the boat ramp up in that fashion for 45 minutes to an hour.
I'm
No.
just posing the question so to make sure there's clarity regarding the motion for the ordinance. There has to be some clarity here, just, that's why I'm posing the question. You're indicating that there is no time limit on that. I'm just asking the question.
I understand you're asking the
Okay.
question. I don't understand why
Well, let's
this
not
would
get
be a
into this
big
to
time
answer
limit.
the.
If you want a time limit on it, well, put it
Let's
on.
just answer the question, that's it. We don't need to get in discussion here. Question, Mr. Flory?
Yeah, I just offer that under section 3A, we did have that language, provided such use does not exceed 30 minutes. So I don't know if you wanted to keep that in. So basically, section A, or section 3A would be the city dock may be used incidentally and in conjunction with commercial purposes, but such use shall be limited to onboarding and offboarding of passengers provided such use does not exceed 30 minutes per watercraft.
Yeah, and that's the clarity we need. It seems,
Okay.
are you including
I'm
that?
happy with that.
Okay,
I'm happy.
just want to make sure, because again, as we go forward here,
Yeah.
that's very important.
No,
So,
that's good.
thank you.
Okay, we have a vote to take at this point. You all clear on that? You want to restate that, Mrs. Larson?
I think I have everything that I need.
Okay, can you read?
Amend to not allow any commercial business usage effective September 8th, 2020 at the main Avenue Seawall dock. That was seconded by Mike. And then now, Section 3, letter A, the city dock may be used incidentally and in conjunction with commercial purposes, but such use shall be limited to dropping off, picking up, or docking boats and other watercraft, onboarding and offboarding passengers, provided such use does not exceed 30 minutes per watercraft.
Okay.
Correct?
Sounds
Right,
good.
and this is an amendment to the ordinance that we will read next at 8:55. Okay, roll call vote. Mark? Yes. Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
Gary?
Yes.
And Bennett?
No.
Motion carries, the amendment carries 4-1. Passes. And now, to act on ordinance number 855, which will include that amendment, an ordinance establishing rules and regulations for the use of the Main Avenue seawall dock and prescribing penalties for violations. Motion, please.
So move.
Second.
Moved by Gary, seconded by Mike, that we approve ordinance number 855. Is there any discussion?
Mayor, I'm not sure if there's any more discussion on this ordinance, but I would like to, if I could go ahead and offer a motion to waive the second, third reading of the amendment.
No, we
amended-
have to act on this motion first.
Okay.
Dana, you're up.
Yes.
Bennett?
No.
Gary?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
And Mike?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1, and ordinance number 855 is duly adopted on the first reading.
Mayor, if I could, at this time, I'd like to offer a motion to waive the second and third reading of the amended city dock ordinance on Main Street.
We can waive the second reading, yeah, not the third.
And do the third.
And
the
do
same
the third,
tonight.
that's how it should go. Okay,
Yes.
a motion has been made to waive the second of three readings and to act on the third and final reading this evening.
Gary seconded.
Gary seconded?
Yes.
And you,
I just told you so you could hear him. Gary seconded the motion. You didn't hear him.
all right. Okay. It's been moved and seconded that we waive the second hearing and move directly to hearing, motion, to the third and final motion of ordinance number 855. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Bennett.
No.
Gary.
Yes.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
And Dana.
Yes.
Motion carries 4-1. And we now move to the third and final reading of ordinance number 855. And I'll read it again. An ordinance establishing rules, regulations for the use of the Main Avenue seawall dock and prescribing penalties for violations. And this does include the amendment of the first reading as well. Motion, please.
So offered.
Second.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Gary, that we approve ordinance number 855 on the third and final reading. Is there any discussion? Roll call. Gary?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Dana?
Yes.
And Bennett?
No.
Motion carries 4-1, and ordinance number 855 is duly adopted. Thank you all. Appreciate your being here this evening. We'll move on to number 6. Chief, report? There's no report. Are there any questions for Chief? Not appearing. Under Mayor's report, CEO Stacy, are you there on the phone?
I am here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right. Good evening, council and mayor. It's been a different yet very busy summer here in Clear Lake. We've continued to see the demand for travel information to Clear Lake grow over 2019, as well as the traffic to our website exploring Clear Lake as a destination. And I've said it before and I'll say it again, we're very fortunate to have this lake in our community, and the lake has proven to be the perfect retreat for this atypical summer. And we welcome the visitors here, and we ask that the visitors and locals wear masks when they are not able to social distance. It is all in an effort to keep North Iowa open and keep our businesses open. And speaking of those businesses, we've had retailers downtown report that they've seen a steady flow of traffic, some even saying that this is their best summer ever. And in spite of the pandemic, we even have a new retail store that opened this past weekend, the Basic Burger, and we will be welcoming a new Euro restaurant on the corner downtown as well. So as the chamber looks towards the end of summer, which is hard to believe, and towards fall, we're continuing to evaluate our options for events. We're pleased to share that the last few weeks of summer, we are planning to have movies in the park. So the next 3 Thursdays in August, we will have movies in the park in lieu of Thursdays on Main. The park offers the perfect place to social distance and enjoy a movie with your family. We are also moving forward with a socially distanced Clear Lake under the guidance of USA Triathlon and CG Public Health. So we've limited the number of athletes who are able to participate, and we've put a race plan together that spreads those athletes out from start to finish of the race. And we are in need of volunteers, so if anyone listening is interested in volunteering, we do need help with that on September 5th, and you can sign up on the Clear Lake Facebook page. We're still discussing options for events beyond Clear Lake at this time. Obviously, the health of our community remains a priority, so no decisions have yet to be made regarding future events. So with that, I guess I'll ask if there are any questions.
Council, any questions for Stacy? Thanks, Stacy. Great positive report. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I want to make council aware that I received Friday a petition from Fieldstone residents with regard to multi-residential in their area. I'll leave it on the table in the office, the center table in there for any of you that would like to look at it as well. Doug Myers, Fire Chief, I believe, sent you all a copy, emailed you all a copy of the fire department's activities over the last several weeks as well. Move to Public Works Director report telephonically, Mr. Weigel.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
We can, thank you.
Just a couple of quick updates on 7th Avenue North Storm Sewer Woodford Lumber Project. The public portion of that's been done for several weeks. The private portion of the underground, I believe, is done, and the majority of the paving there in the main parking lot, the business was paved last week, and they're just waiting for clear time on that. grading and landscaping work, I think they're finishing up with country landscape. The East Main Avenue project, stage one, underground is complete, except for tomorrow they'll start with the, sub-drain. They did the rough grading, and then the subcontractors anticipated to come in on Wednesday to do the fine grading after the sub-drain work is complete. And then they hope to get 3/4 of that first two blocks of, stage one, rock yet this week. So hopefully by the middle of next week, they'll get that last, access road done on the south half, the 19th Street, removed and graded and rocked, and, stage one will be complete then. They did move down to, stage two and started on the sanitary sewer there from 13th Street, working their way east last week. They're about 3/4 of the way from 13th up to 14th. They'll finish with the sanitary, here in the next few days probably, and then move on to storm sewer. And then, grade that intersection there at, North 14th. And once they get that done, they're gonna move back down into stage three and then work their way west there from, 18th to 16th. So they are roughly probably still, a week to 10 days ahead of schedule. So obviously the weather's been cooperating, and that obviously helps matters. So that's all I have, unless you got questions.
Council, any questions for Mr. Weigel? Thanks, Joe. Mr. Flory?
One thing quick, Mayor. I'm going to give council an update on the Marriott project. Of course, you know the rough grading's been done on the site by Charleston Excavating. They also were the contractor that got the construction contract to install the underground utilities there. So the water, storm sewer, and sanitary sewer have all been installed into the property. And also now today, footings have started for the building itself. And I understand that the developer and landowner are working now to get Alliant on gas, to get gas to the location, as well as get the electric in place. So it's going to be about 3 weeks before they can get the electric taken care of, but the gas should be a lot quicker. So coming along real well. I don't know if anybody has any questions.
Questions?
We may want to have a conversation at some point on street lighting once Alliant gets going on the electric. You know, at least with respect to that southern road, you know, on North 32nd Street, we put in kind of that upgraded street lighting there. We may want to give that some consideration on that southern road there as well. Maybe not the northern one, that's a little more light industrial in nature, but that southern road's got a lot more of a commercial exposure and potential associated with it. So probably only ever get one opportunity to pick out the street lights, so it's probably worth a discussion as to whether or not we want to think about upgraded street lighting as opposed to just the conventional street lighting there. So probably bring some forward on that at some point. So.
Thanks, Scott. Anything else, Council?